Good morning, I'm Louise Wallace. I am the CMS Head of Corporate and Mergers and Acquisitions, focusing on the hotel, leisure and retail sectors. Well, I think OPRI is a really important but a very quite wide generic term. And whereas you have specialist conferences which may be on hospitality or restaurants or real estate offices, it's nice that it brings together the broader remit of what operational real estate is and really focusing on the challenges that that sector brings. I think it's a good opportunity to hear from some experts. They've got some very, very good speakers here. Andrew puts together a programme very well. If I'm allowed to say this, I think he does a very balanced view. So I think the gender, which is traditionally pretty awful on the real estate side, is pretty good. So of my panel, I had four of us were female and one male. I think that's a very unusual situation to be in. We had a bit of a debate on the panel about what constitutes operational real estate because it doesn't fit neatly into an individual category. To me, it's very much a case that the business can only be carried on at the property itself. You can't transport that and do it in a different property. So take a hotel, you can't transport that business outside of that property. Whereas if you are in an office location, you could move offices. I think we've been specialists in OPRI for some time, and so we would say that we define it within the different asset classes, so whether it's student accommodation, senior living, hospitality and leisure. We have specialists who buy and sell companies specialising in this, so we understand the regulatory aspects. But I think bringing it all together, bringing together the debt providers, the equity providers, is really helpful. I think that just really understanding the operational nature of it, it's not a lease business, it's not a pure income play where you can say, yes, I know exactly what return I'm going to get from this property, barring, of course, any unforeseen insolvencies or downturns which makes your tenants unable to pay the rent. But it's very much a varied, fluctuating income stream, and that can be challenging for some investors. Well, I think that's an interesting one. So the cyclicality of it may depend on whether you've got investors who have been in for the long term. So I've been doing hotel and leisure transactions, very typical operational real estate deals, since the early 2000s. And in that time, we've had a number of cycles. We've had 2001, we've had the global financial crisis, we've had COVID, all of which have had some seismic changes in relation to performance. But the clients that we act on, the investors that we act for, know that these challenges are there and are prepared to take the risk and the reward that brings. Others, if you've just come in and bought your first hotel or first operational real estate asset at the start of COVID, you're probably thinking, crikey, let me get out of this sector. So I think that the cyclicality is not for the unwary, but managed properly can still mean that it gets very good returns. I think what we're seeing now, and probably COVID has exacerbated this, is that traditional landlord-tenant only works provided the tenants can pay the rent, and the way that the models are changing. So we're all moving to hybrid working. Offices are having to change their way of thinking. So that whole way of doing business and the way the differences between the landlords and tenants are such that there needs to be some form of flexibility. So one of my panellists said every type of property is operational now because you do need to actively manage that the property. You can't just be a passive investor regardless of the asset type. Okay, so my panel was in relation to capital providers' approach to operational real estate. And on the panel, I had some investors, I had a lender, and I had the Urban Land Institute. And one of the things they were really focusing on was the different approaches that people have to operational real estate, and very much a case that looking at it from an investor's position is different from a lender's position. But all of them very keen on ensuring that they understand what the risks are, appropriate management platforms, what the returns are going to be. So I think what the panellists all agree on is that you can't look at operational real estate as one category. You need to delve down into those subcategories, whether it's service accommodation will have different challenges to senior living, which will have different challenges to hospitality and leisure. And understanding the matrix and understanding the levers that people push to get the rewards is very key and specific to those subsectors.